1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
It is game time.
Game time, Jamie.
Detroit, City of Champions. Just really excited about today. We're doing the podcast.
I'm really excited about today. We were alluding to it all the whole show last time.
That is it.
To it. I'm really excited.
That is. So Detroit, City of Champions. It's a trilogy of books written by
Charles Avison.
I'm Jamie Flanagan. Just enjoying the ride and listening to stories. And Charles has been sharing some stories with me about people he've met along the way, and you have like a special appendix called
Tales of a Traveling Storyteller.
Tales of a Traveling Storyteller, and in that he talks about some amazing, fascinating, and wonderful people that he's met as he gathered this story, and people that motivated and inspired him to tell this story.
Just bringing the story back was, it was such. Just the road, like going to doing art shows and doing different things. There's been so many, like what I came to realize early on in the project was this, because the story was so forgotten, that like that part of the story of the City of Champions, there's the City of Champions that happened back in 1935.
Yeah.
But then there's also like the modern day effort to bring the story back. And so this is a story. This is a timeline of the City of Champions story, which extends from 1935, from 35 all the way through today.
Yeah.
And everyone that is part of it, that's what's in it. For everybody that's listening, for everybody that tells somebody about this, for everybody that does anything regarding the City of Champions story, you are part of the larger story of this effort of bringing back the greatest season to ever take place in the history of American sport.
And today, one of those people that is really important in having captured some amazing,
incredibly important.
We have the honor having on the show with us today, Tom Eurich.
Thanks
for being with us.
My buddy.
Well, thank you for having me. Listening to Charles brings back a lot of memories, because when I was a young boy growing up, my father always told me about the City of Champions, and I really didn't know just who they all encompassed and just how big it was. And Dad said, well, there was the Lions, Tigers, and Red Wings, but there was Walter Hagen, but the rest. And Charles has put this all together to never forget just what happened on the City of Champions.
Yeah, and I'll introduce Tom just a little bit more too. Is that Tom? Tom, I was thinking about it today. I forgot how it was that you and I met. Like I'm really like I'm trying to remember exactly where we met, but it's because it's been so long. I've known you for 10 years.
I'll tell you exactly how I met.
Yeah, remind me.
My stockbroker was a man by the name of Mr. Bill Williams.
I'm listening.
In years, and it just so happened that he went to the 1935 championship game and witnessed it. And I told him that I interviewed the 1935.
Which one, the Tigers?
No, the Lions.
Oh, really? The
game. We're talking about football.
Yeah,
So he
went. Game, Tom. That's all you got to say.
But you got to listen to this.
Yeah.
So he went to the game and he saw the game, and his favorite player was Ernie Cadell.
Yeah.
He was number one.
Yep.
And he said that he and his mother were kind of poor. You got to remember, this was the Great Depression. There was lines as long as you could see. So his mother bought him an old shirt, and they put a 1 on it.
Nice.
And he went to school as Ernie Cadell.
That's awesome.
And I gave him the tape that you have, the video. And when he heard Ernie Cadell's voice, his son, who was also working at the stock exchange, said his dad cried.
Really?
Because all of those years, he was Ernie Cadell. He was in the Korean War, and he always talked about the 1935 World Champions.
So basically, he's like the nowadays they sell jerseys for players. He's making his own back then because they couldn't even really buy them.
His mother made him and put a 1 on a jersey.
That's so cool.
And he went to school, and he was Ernie Cadell. And when he heard his voice on the tape or on the show, his son, Junior, told me that he cried. And I gave him a shirt, and he wore it till the day he died.
Really?
The City of Champions.
So did I meet him at a show and then
no,
you and I connected?
I was in his office, and believe it or not, he had your book.
Oh, okay.
And I called Avison, and I called first to your father because I didn't know where it was.
Okay.
Your father gave me your telephone number, and that's how we met.
Yeah, because I remember when we met. It was that we met at I think it was a little it was like a
restaurant.
A restaurant. It was like a Coney Island. Me and you were hanging out.
Yep.
And I remember when I first met you, it was like the first year I was doing this. I mean, this is back in like 2008.
Right.
And I remember it was like like, I mean, I found like the first person that really could connect with, because, you know, I was bit by the City of Champions bug, and so were you. And it was evident from the very first day. You're like, Tom was like, you know, we were both like kind of crackheads for it. Or something, you know?
that was at the Holiday Inn in Dearborn, Michigan. And if you remember, I gave you some material that Dave Kushner got, and we exchanged.
Sure.
And we've been friends
We've been friends ever since. And I look every once in a while you pop up into these, you know, the different stores I'm in, these, we call it's the Inspire Markets out at Laurel Park in 12 Oaks. If anybody wants to come and see me, I'm in there. We talk City of Champions all day, and you can also buy some stuff too. But Tom pops in there every once in a while, and every time when you walk through the door, Tom, it just, whatever I'm doing, it's like, I'm really excited to see you. And there's really been, I mean, you've been such a major supporter of like this. I mean, your friendship with you has been fantastic. And I'm really excited to bring you out here, and because you've got some really great stuff to tell the world. And I can't, like, this is, and I just to let the viewer, you know, the listener and the viewer know, I'm hoping to do like, 2, 3, potentially even 4 episodes with Tom, if we can get him in here for this, because we've got a ton of stuff to talk about.
Absolutely. So take your time, tell us your stories, because we want to hear it all. What do we want?
Let me just prime the pump just a little bit. Okay. Yeah. So what was the man that's sitting here, Tom Eurich. This is, I'm just going to tell just a little bit over, because I want you to tell the entire story. Okay. So in 1985, there was a 50th anniversary of the Detroit Lions' first NFL championship, and it was called the Golden Huddle. And so Tom was there. Okay. And not only was Tom there, but he made recordings.
Well, you told me he kind of helped facilitate and get that ball rolling.
That's what Tom's going to get the story going, but I just want to give a little bit overview. But Tom was there, and not only was he there, but he made a series of interviews, which we actually have in our possession, and we're not gonna get into that too deep on this episode. That's why I want to bring him back. We're gonna, this episode, I want to talk about how this entire party came about, because the story itself is fascinating, and talk about how like I say, like Tom, it wasn't just the interviews that he did, which are fascinating, which I actually use a lot of in this book, in my third book. But he actually like literally talked to these guys for like 3 hours that are not on tape. And that's what I want to try to drag out of his brain, because he's got some fantastic stories.
Well, can I go back to my beginning in 1957?
Bring it out.
Okay.
Bring it out.
Tom, tell me about your childhood.
Yeah. Well, we got the psychologist Jamie here. Yeah.
In 1957, a neighbor of mine, or a high school friend of mine, called, and he said George Halas, that was his last year with the Bears as a coach. And so I ran over and I just caught him, and he was going out the door to the car, and I yelled out, George Halas, Mr. Halas, who was the greatest quarterback you ever saw play in your career? And he said, Dutch Clark, Portsmouth. That's all. That's all he said. I went back home, and my dad said, did you see George? I said, yeah. And I asked him who was the greatest quarterback, and he said, Dutch Clark. I said, but he said Portsmouth. And I said, Dad, do you know anything about Dutch Clark? He says, I think he played for the Lions. But in 1957, we didn't have an internet. We had nothing.
Sure.
In 1963, we had a furniture store in Dearborn, and one of our customers came in and who played with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he took me down to see Bobby Lane play an exhibition game. And I was called upstairs to the press box, and I sat with Art Rooney, who was with the Steelers at the time. And I asked him the same question: who was the greatest quarterback you had ever saw? And he said Portsmouth, Dutch Clark, Detroit. And then in 1985, what an honor to sit down with the actual players that played with him.
Yes,
what's the chances of that?
Well, it's incredible. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's so that's what I'm saying. Like George Halas, we've mentioned him on the show a couple times already, and especially his rivalry with with Potsy Clark.
Yep.
And so the fact that George Halas would down the road say that claim Dutch Clark to be the best quarterback ever is because Halas had some great quarterbacks along the way too. So for him to actually, to go back and talk about his rival like that, to bring out Dutch and say he's the man. I mean, it's an
honor.
Well, not only that,
incredible. Yeah.
And I thought Halas for sure would say maybe Bobby Lane, but he was playing the Lions the next day, and I don't think he, I don't think he wanted to bring
no.
Yeah.
But I would have thought but the Bears had tons of great quarterbacks. I mean, they had a whole. I mean, Halas was the coach that was a coach and owner of that team for 40 years.
Oh yeah,
Red
Grange played for that team.
That's what I'm saying. There's so many
University.
guys. Yeah, there's so many guys that he could have listed. Yeah. So for him to say Dutch Clark, I mean, my God.
Then I'll tell you how I got to the Golden Huddle.
Yeah. So that was the name of the 50th year anniversary. Yes, the Golden Huddle.
I got it. The picture of Ben here in my book. But anyway, I volunteered to work for a little sports shop that took people on travels to like the Chicago to what it's 84. The Tigers, won the World Series. Sure. And this little sports shop started up. So I volunteered, and my time was I would get to go on a ride, for my pay. But a lady walked in, and she was selling from W. Carr advertising, and she asked me if I'd like to do sports. And I said yes, and that's how I got into radio. And then I was reading the paper that Detroit City of Champions in 1985 was honoring the championship. And I thought our little travel service, boy, that would be an opportunity. We could have a little booth there to promote our travel service and also represent the 1935 World Champion team. We had tremendous players that came. Bill Lambier came. Leon Spinks came.
Did you say you set it up for it was like at Westland Mall or something?
At Westland Mall.
So you set up it was like a setup with
a booth,
a big booth at Westland Mall
for us to sell travel tickets to get people to know.
Sure.
But in the meantime, we were sponsoring the 1935
Yeah,
team.
so that was the theme of the thing at Westland
Mall. A lot
Mall.
of the athletes came in. Leon Spinks had just beaten Ali. He came to honor it. Ferguson Jenkins came in.
Man.
Some of the great stars, K-Line came in. But the only one that came in to represent the 1935 City of Champions was Abe Kushner.
Yeah.
And Abe was the trainer and started the 1934 Lions. He moved them from Portsmouth up to Detroit.
Take a look at that, Tom. That picture, Abe Kushner up there.
There he is right
there.
What a minute. He gave the largest donation that Canton had ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah.
So anyway, he introduced me and he said he was so honored that it was my idea to represent the 1935 World Champions that he personally invited me to the Golden Huddle. He said, Tom, come early about 4:00. The dinner starts at 6. I want you to interview the players that actually were in Portsmouth and the Detroit Lions. In 1934, Detroit had two teams, the Spartans, and they were 15 players short to build a team. And the story that they told me was unbelievable.
Yeah. So what Tom's saying is, what he's alluding to, and this is what actually I wish I would have had this conversation before, I even did the third book, because this is information that what you're about to hear, it's not in my book.
We need another annex.
It's not in my, an appendix. Yeah. It's, but what Tom's talking about is that what the story that we're about to talk about now is what Tom talked with these guys about, their firsthand experiences about moving from Portsmouth to Detroit and the hurdles that they had overcome, the obstacles they had overcome. And we talked about the transition between 34 and 35, this big the varsity versus all-star, varsity versus freshman game. And then Potsy turned over this roster with, I got to look at my notes. Was it 9 new guys or whatever for the 1935 season? But going into 34, there was another roster transition, and I didn't know this. I guess I didn't dive into it too deeply. But that's what Tom is to talk about, is how when they left Portsmouth at the end of 1933. And they were joined to become the Detroit Lions. Yeah. They came to Detroit and they only had half a team. And that's what the story Tom's about to tell right now.
When I was introduced, when Abe took me to the reunion and I was there was 2 tables. Mm-hmm. The one table, number 1, was the actual Spartans sat.
The original Spartans.
That played in Portsmouth. I ran in that field. And the other table was the Lions recruit. There was 9 rookies on that team. I did my research. And the players, their last game was December the 3rd, the Portsmouth Spartans, 1933. That was their last game. They knew it. There was nobody in the stands. It was over.
Wow.
So they knew it was over. And then the players are saying, where are we going to go? And then Dick Richards came in, who owned WJR.
Yep.
Right.
And he purchased the team. And I've got the exact figure, $7,979.08 he paid to liquidate all of the indebtedness of Portsmouth. But now the players thought Why? He's going to take the whole team. We're all going to Detroit.
Hey,
Yeah.
you're going
you
to
know, the whole
Disneyland.
team.
You're going to Disneyland.
But you got to remember also, Dutch Clark was not on that team in '33.
Right.
He was a coach at the Colorado School of Mines.
Sure, yeah.
And he left in 1932.
Yeah, he retired because they could. Yeah. They couldn't afford it. I mean,
So all of the team, the Portsmouth players, are telling me that they were so happy that they're all going to be as one as a team.
Yeah.
They're all coming together.
Yeah.
Right? Be like us. all of a sudden, we're all a team. We're going to Detroit. Didn't work that way. The word came out that they were only going to take 12 were going, and the other 14 were going to be left behind. And that really stirred a lot of headaches. It was very emotional. I mean, some of these players had been together like a team. In Portsmouth, the players, I've been there twice. The city loved those players.
Oh, I've been down to Portsmouth myself, and that Portsmouth Spartans team is like, I mean, it is revered to this day. The stadium, Jamie.
Yeah.
It's like they never left the stadium. They last year they did a fundraiser because they had to repair some part of the building. Man, this stadium has been it's in the same shape as when the Portsmouth Spartans left in 1930 at the end of 1933. It's incredible. The stadium is beautiful. Yeah.
And I highly recommend that the people that are listening, if you ever go to Portsmouth,
just
go there to that stadium. And I'm going to give a little plug.
Yeah.
If you go to the River Restaurant, all pictures of the Portsmouth Spartans and all of the Lions.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I saw the waitress. I interviewed him. They didn't believe it, but when you're 80 years old, I guess they had.
And they have a beautiful little baseball field right next to the football stadium. And the stadium's called Branch Rickey Field. Branch Rickey is one of the greatest general managers in baseball history. He's the guy that brought in Jackie Robinson, broke the color barrier in baseball. But the stadium's called Branch Rickey Field because he played, in that area. And Branch Rickey was one of the driving forces with it was built during the Great Depression. It was built in 1935. It was built right after the Spartans left. And that stadium was built by the CCC, which is they use all these. There's a ton of stadiums from around the country that were built by these, the Civilian Conservation Corps. To this. And so anyways, that baseball field is beautiful too. And it's it's also in a nice little shape and condition.
And the setting there, you're overlooking the Ohio River right into Kentucky.
It's a beautiful
the flames
spot.
of the Ohio River.
Anybody gets down to Portsmouth, it is absolutely worth your
time.
But
we're getting back now to the 25 players in Portsmouth think that the team is thinking they're going to Detroit.
Yeah.
Well, wishful thinking didn't work out. Then the word, and the players really didn't know. I think they were notified by letters written that who was going to go and who wasn't going to go.
There wasn't a red tag hanging in their locker.
And they left their friends. But breaking up from Portsmouth, those players had to go, and coming to Detroit, they needed new medical.
Sure.
They didn't know where they were going to play. They asked Richards he didn't have a team to play or a stadium to play. Navin Field turned him down.
Right.
Well, of course, they're not Tigers. The Tigers in the middle of the 1934 incredible season. Frank Navin is not letting.
Hey, can we
scramble
around on your
third-rate NFL team going to come up and tear up his beautiful Navin Field grass? That is not happening in Detroit. They're having the greatest season they've ever had, drawing almost 1 million fans in 1934. They're going to come out there and they're going to have the infield all torn up by a bunch of guys. That ain't happening.
Well,
never
then they went out. Richards went out to Ann Arbor and the big house. Was it the big house in 34? They turned him down.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, UD Titan Stadium brought him in, and I found out that the Lions trained at Cranbrook.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we were talking about that last year.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So consequently, but here's the players. Now, you got to realize that this team has been together. There's only 11 going to Detroit, and in 33, they're on their way to Detroit.
Yeah, but they've been together since Potsy
Lions
brought them all in 31. Yeah,
I found out, I was doing a little research. The Lions, Vic Richards signed the contract to become an NFL team on June 30th, 1934.
Okay.
And from what I called Canton, and in those days, you couldn't tamper with players' contracts until you were absolutely you had the certificate. I'm a Detroit Lion.
Yeah.
Well.
So then that meant that Richards, half a team short, had to go out and get 11 or 12 brand new players to come in fresh. They had no draft. The draft started in 1936 by Bert Bell. He was, matter of fact, I was at a game when they played when they honored Bert Bell in Detroit, and we stood for his epitaph in 1956. I've been a Lions fan since 1950. So anyway, so here they are, and these players are all one team from Portsmouth. Half of them are down there. They're going to Detroit. Who am I going to play with?
Yeah.
Who?
But at the same time, in Potsy, they got to trust because Potsy was the one that brought all them in too.
Well, because he kind of did that when he
was the
took
one that brought
over.
them in too.
Charles, here's my answer. My question on Potsy: did he recruit how did he know these players? Because these were all college kids from.
He's a scout, man. Potsy was that's what we talk about, the genius of Potsy Clark. In 1931, because he took over the Portsmouth Spartans in 1931, it was his first year. He brought in 19 new guys. 1930, the Spartans were dreadful, and they brought in Potsy in 31. Yeah. He brought in 19 new guys. When he came to Detroit, when he came in 1934, it was I think we said it was 9 of the guys were still with him when he came to Detroit, and it was like 5 of them were still there when they won the 35 championship.
Right.
And so that's what I'm saying is that and now this is another overhaul that we haven't even talked about really until recently talking to you. I didn't even know, but this is a third overhaul from 30. How many years is that? 31. 32, 33, 34, 35, 5 years. This is the third major team overhaul that we're talking about. Potsy. Right. The first one, when he first took over the team, 19 new guys. The second one, when he comes to Detroit, now we're talking about, 13 new guys. How many guys got left behind? 13, 14?
Yeah, left in Portsmouth.
Yeah. So that's the 13 guys that he's got to bring in for the 34 team. And then going into 35, 9 new guys. I mean, this is for a 25-man roster. That's what I'm saying. Potsy knows what he's doing. But he kept his core stars in place.
So is that common for the time, though? Were other teams turning over like that?
To be honest, I don't know, but it's a hell of a thing, man.
Yeah.
To stay competitive by overturning your roster constantly is a big deal.
So when I was at the reunion, like I said, Abe Kushner took me to the table, and there was the 3 Spartans that I talked to were Glyn Prisnell, Ox Emerson, and Ernie Cadell. Those 3 players were the only ones left that played in Portsmouth.
Yeah. But you were saying they were sitting at 2 different tables. There was like a click. There was like the original game, the original OGs, and then there was like the modern. They're like, these guys, they were the new guys. They came around in 1934.
Yeah.
They're going, here it is 80 or 50 years later. They're going, those are the new guys,
and that's exactly the way it was.
Yeah, there was like a click. Yeah.
Like I say, Abe Kushner took me in, and he took me to the table to interview the Lions or to talk to them. But his real purpose was to get me to table 1 to talk to the Portsmouth players.
Yeah.
And 2 of those players played in the very first game, the 1932 World Championship in Chicago under the roof.
And just to touch base with the viewers that maybe joined us a little bit late, Abe Kushner was the trainer of the Lions, and he's the one that brought Tom, which is our guest here, Tom Eurich, to the gold. He invited him to the Golden Huddle, which was the 50th anniversary of the Lions' first championship.
Right.
And I just want to let you know, I'm not sure if I told you this or not, but I met Abe Kushner's son, Steven. And that's the photos that we have that we put up on the screen. The one with the chest, Jamie. You got
it's there.
So he's got the chest right there where it says Abby Kushner, Lions trainer. That is now in the NFL Hall of Fame. That is on. I'm not sure if it's on display yet, but Steven Kushner donated that, and Steven Kushner was an absolute gem for this. He gave me. He was able to, because I met him like a week after he donated that trunk and all the stuff from inside the trunk to the NFL Hall of Fame.
Yep.
And so but Abe Kushner also had the unpublished archives. He had like unpublished story of his own. Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah. So it was an unpublished recollections of Abe Kushner. Abe Kushner had taken a bunch of notes regarding the story of this season. And so anyways, it was in that trunk. And so his son, Steven, had just donated the trunk to the NFL Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, what was in it? I want to go see it. It was just like a week after. I go, man, I wish I would have met you like a week before. So anyways, he says, and so he goes, oh, well, my father had some recollections. And I'm like, that's the one thing I want. I want to read about Abe Kushner's recollections, because especially after talking to you and about how he was like, Abe Kushner was such a driving force for you to go to this, to the Golden Huddle. And so he was able to get for me a copy back from the Hall of Fame because I tried to call the Hall of Fame myself, and they were like, "Oh, we're too busy to dig in to find him." Like, he just donated a week ago, and they're like, "Oh, we don't know really where it's at or whatever." But those recollections were fantastic.
That's the picture of Abe Kushner at the reunion in 1985.
Here, can I show this?
I'll get it.
Camera?
Yeah, I'll get it. I'll get it.
That's
There we go. So Jamie's got this is a picture Tom just gave. It just shows. That's at the Golden Huddle.
No, that was at the Westland Mall.
That was at the Westland Mall. That was pre Golden Huddle. Yeah,
and that's where I was invited to go to the Golden Huddle.
Yeah, there he is.
And he was. I'll tell you, he was the nicest man you'd ever want to meet.
Yep.
He did all of the ball lettering for the Lions.
Oh, he did for all the after the game ball
also,
where it talked about the score.
And also
on it,
that he was the personal trainer for 1 year of Dutch Clark.
Oh, really? Okay.
And he told me stories on Dutch Clark you can't believe over the years.
Well, that's where,
he died in 1987.
Yeah, well, so I'm just saying, like, I met Steve, his son, and his son was absolutely fantastic. Helped me get some of the information.
I never met his son.
Yeah, his son's real nice, and so like I actually used, some of the stuff from his son. Is that photo that you saw with the trunk. In the photo that you saw, that show me. Bring up the other photo too, where he's taping up his foot.
Sure, yeah.
That is also from. See up here, Tom. See on the screen there.
Yep.
That we have it on the screen for those that can see it. That's there. That's a fantastic photo showing Abe right there.
There's the. I've just handed to Jamie that's the Golden Huddle. That was who was there.
Okay.
And
at the event in
and
85.
if you notice at the bottom is a picture of Dutch Clark. That was not in the original program, but I went around Detroit and I found to the sports shops, and I was lucky enough to find a sports card
screenshot of this
of Dutch Clark.
Because the next one I want to make sure we were gonna have a bunch of pictures from all the people that were at the Golden Huddle, but I hadn't.
Now we know. Now we know exactly
who.
Now
I can actually go through and we'll have photos of all these players.
So when we hear their voice, we'll be able to see their picture.
Because we have a team photo, but I've got some really great shots of all these guys.
You can bring that up if you want to show them.
Yeah.
So all right, I'll bring up the
we'll get it. We'll dive into more of the exact players for the. Yeah, you want to bring it up there? There you go.
Yeah, that's a copy of a copy.
That's like the bootleg way of showing it up. Bring it down so you can see it. Bring it down so you can see the names.
Oh yeah, and then
Jamie's showing you right now the names of all the players that were at the Golden Huddle.
Yep.
This is kind of the. Next time you want to throw some out there, we can take a screenshot and do it so the fans at home can.
That's
see
high tech right there,
super
baby.
Crisp way instead of having to do the bootleg version. But anyways, it works. A fan at home, they forgive us.
City of Champions, man. We rock it old school.
Yeah, we do it. However, we make up the rules.
Like I feel like
on.
the Ghoul channel 56, and it's like the
when they show like
scrolling.
the end. It's got
camera 4. All right.
Yeah, they bring it up papers as the end. On it. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I was talking to the players, and I sat down. I didn't get much of a word in, but the players were telling me about their days at Portsmouth and the transition to Detroit. It was very tearful because they were worried about the players left behind, and there was only 11 teams in the NFL at that time, and they were trying to see if they could latch on with another team, and they worried about them. They were. It was a massive depression. It's either they play football or they have what Christensen always said in the depression, where they called it the empty plater.
Right.
And the team just didn't want those players, and they worked, and some of them never played again.
And that's another facet of this amazing story, is that it was such a difficult time in America. I mean, we have no clue. We lived through the 70s. There's a little bit of a recession in the 80s.
Let me finish on with the Portsmouth players. When they came to Detroit, they weren't accepted. At all.
No, we've talked about this already in the show. Is that the Tigers?
And I'll have to tell you a little bit of interjection here.
Well, just real quick, the Tigers were the team in Detroit in '34. So they're trying to seize on the excitement of this new. The Detroit is going insane for the Tigers, and so the Lions are coming in and they're being billed as like, oh, we're like if they can draw some enthusiasm from the Tigers in this idea, but it basically worked against them because the Tigers were so popular that the Lions couldn't even get a mention on page 3.
Right. Well,
they had to win a championship just to even get a mention in the newspapers. That's the level that they were. So go ahead. Yeah.
I listened to them talk, and when they got to Detroit, they weren't really accepted. Christensen told me he woke up one morning and there was a sign on his front yard that said, "Please go back to Portsmouth."
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Which Christensen's? Because there was two Christensens.
That was Christensen.
Which one? Frank? Oh,
Yeah,
Frank
Frank,
Christensen.
yep.
Little. They call him. They call him
Yep,
Little Chris. The Little Chris. But he's also
And
the best punter on the
they
team.
would get crank calls, and I'm listening to this, and at the reunion. But then I discovered, I like to interject something. I went to Portsmouth on my first trip, and there was a man down there by the name of Bob Morton. And he brought in some dedicated collectors that had the actual programs from the very first Lions in 1934.
Oh, nice.
And would you believe it or not, in the back of the page of the program was every player's name, where he lived, and his telephone number.
Oh my
in
goodness.
the game program. So it wasn't just like a brief mention in a newspaper that
No.
maybe somebody go, oh, maybe we should have mentioned the address in today's paper. No, it was like out for the whole season. Like, hey, you want to go knock on the door? Here's your
Oh my
address.
God.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that, but then I related back to
I know
what
where
they
Golden
told me
Tate
at the
lived,
meeting.
but,
I'm thinking those players, here's the first game in 1934. They had 12,000 fans, and all they got to do is flip in the back. That player had a bad year. I'm going to go. I won't let him in his driveway.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
It was a floating telephone book. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Oh, can we get
So-
Patricia's address right about now?
Yeah.
Dude, I got a case of toilet paper. We're going to have a party.
Yeah, they won't release these addresses nowadays. That's out of control now.
We'll go TP like crazy.
I've been
Yeah.
following the Lions since 1950.
Oh,
I went to
God.
Did you say
three
TD
championships.
like
Yeah,
crazy
yeah,
or
yeah,
TP
yeah.
like
TP
crazy?
like
Oh,
Do it.
TP.
Use your imagination.
Heartbreak is not new.
A couple things he could have said.
I got to defend my Lions.
Heartbreak is
Yeah.
not new to you, is it?
But anyway, so I got them. Then the Lions alumni director Aid turned it over to, his name was Bob James, and Bob James went out and talked to some of the table 2 and table 1. My biggest regret was that I didn't get a chance to get Glenn Presnell because
Oh, Glenn, that's my
well,
guy.
he was
Yeah.
now you're in my team. See, like I love Dutch. I love Ernie Cadell. Cadell's. I mean, it's tough to pick those. I love Ox Emerson. I love Tarzan Christensen, but Glenn Presnell is my guy. That's my. I'd probably have to say he's my favorite Lion. Glenn
down in
Presnell,
Portsmouth they call him 99. Do you know why?
No, hit me with it.
Because he made the 99th year of his birth. He couldn't.
Oh
quite-
yeah, 'cause he's the
he
oldest
couldn't
living
quite-
NFL player. Yeah.
Not now. The oldest NFL player now is a man by the name of Cy Souders. He was a Lion. He's 100, and I knew the whole family.
Really?
I knew,
But prior to his death, at one
Yeah.
point, Glenn Presnell was the
now
oldest
Cy
living player.
Souders
Yeah.
is the oldest Lion or the oldest NFL
Okay.
player. He's 100. I know.
But
the
at one point, Presnell was he was at 99. You say
But-
when he did that article, he did an interview in the Free Press or whatever, and it was awesome. It was a great article.
So after I left the table number 2, I went to my seating and I sat with Jug Gerard and Jim Martin, who were 1953 world champions. But during the ceremony, Glenn Presnell was not feeling well and he left. He actually picked out the colors of the Honolulu blue at
Yeah.
G.A.
Oh.
Richards' office
Yep.
in the Fisher building.
Yep. That's
And-
what I mean. Yeah, Glenn Presnell was there to pick out the colors. Yeah.
Yeah, And Dutch, according to what the player said, that he had all these uniforms on the Fisher building with WJR, and the minute that he came to the top floor of the Fisher building, he said, "That's the
The
uniform."
Golden Tower.
Yeah,
of the
I want
Fisher
to. I want to
Building.
tell you.
That's why I love working at 96.3.
Here's a little-
Is
go ahead, yeah.
we're there. Our sister station is JR, so I get the privilege of working in the Fisher Building, which is itself is just a monument in Detroit. It's just a amazing piece of art, and I love it to walk in the hallways because my grandfather, and then my dad and his 4 sisters all worked in the Fisher Building back in the 50s. There was a club called the Recess Club.
I've heard of that.
And they were all there. My one aunt, she's 96 now. She's 92, 96, something like that. She was a nun. She's a Dominican nun. She taught at St. Paul's for 50 years. Now she's back at the convent in Adrian. But she was the elevator operator. My dad and one of his sisters worked the coat check, and the other girl was the other one was a cigarette girl. At the Recess Club, and my grandfather worked maintenance. So I love walking into the Fisher Building because the place is just it is what it was back then, and it's glorious. I just love being part of it, and that's why I love these stories. It just takes me back to just a little cooler time.
You know what the call letters were before they were WJR?
No, what were they?
WCX.
WCX. All right.
And they were in conjunction with WWJ.
Right. Yeah.
One was for the news building and one was for the Free Press building.
Ah, okay.
Right? And WJR started, or WCX started in 1922. So where were we now?
Yeah.
No, well,
Okay.
I just want.
And
like,
we weren't talking about me enough, so I had to get I get a little
Jamie
bit of
will throw
me
some
in
stuff
there a
in,
little
sure.
bit. All right.
But I want to throw in a little thing about Glenn Presnell, about why I love the guy. All right, why I love the guy. We were talking about him a little bit on the last show, but I got to talk about it again. This is Tom didn't hear the last show. Is like Glenn Presnell. Like there's this Dutch Clark was the star. Dutch Clark was the guy, but Presnell was also the star.
Yeah.
Presnell. Yeah. So when Dutch left in 33, Presnell was still there. And it was he who became, like, when Dutch left, who, like, okay, Dutch is gone, so now he's not the number one scoring quarterback, number one scorer in the NFL. Now Glenn Presnell is, you know what I mean? It's now he's the guy. So it's really Presnell's team for that 1 year. But so that's what I'm saying. Like the entire time, like Dutch Clark was like this reluctant superstar. Like he's retiring every single year, and they're going, "Please, Dutch, please come back. We're gonna cut half our team and give you all the money from the guys that we didn't pay to bring you back."
That was
that's which is probably the reason why they didn't bring half the guys, is because they were using that money to pay the Dutch. They made Dutch the highest paid player in the NFL. Well, where do you think that money came from? From the guys they left behind. You know what I mean? Like, please, Dutch, we'll give you all the money we got. Like Dutch is the guy, right? But Presnell was an elite athlete. He was an elite star in his own right. Yes. But Dutch was just that like Napoleonic, like elite superstar player that just no matter what Presnell did, Dutch was just the guy, because sometimes we have that reluctant superstar. People are like, "Oh, please, God, if Dutch could just come back one more year." And then there's Dutch coming back to lead him to the next great year, like, so Presnell was there through the thick and thin from the very beginning. And he was there even basically before Dutch.
Absolutely.
Because he was in the Ironton Tanks, which the Ironton Tanks,
yep.
Anybody wants to do some real NFL research, start digging into the Ironton Tanks.
I want that shirt. I still want that shirt.
Jamie, we got to get Jamie a shirt with the Ironton Tanks. There's the Ironton Tanks jersey up on the screen, okay? So that's what I'm saying. You want to run some real football? Let's talk about the Ironton Tanks, okay?
Yeah.
Taking on this is a semi-pro team, all right? Some of these guys aren't even paid at all. Right. And this is a team that plays, they're playing these games against the this is a time, this is in the this is, I think it was 1929 or 1930. This is before he came to Portsmouth, of course. But Ironton's a very close team to Portsmouth. It's a very close city. And so here's Presnell playing for Ironton. He's you played at the University of Nebraska, right? He plays for the University of Nebraska, which is like that's a football,
man.
That's Cornhusker football territory. That's where football players, the breadbasket of America come from, dude. You play for Nebraska? That's where Presnell comes from. And then he's playing for the Ironton Tanks, a semi-pro team. He's the quarterback for that team. And he beats, as a semi-pro team, they're not even in the NFL. The NFL existed NFL been around for 10 years at that point. And they're playing against the Ironton Tanks are playing against the Chicago Bears and the Giants, and he beats, I forget which one of them it was. Yeah. I think it was the Giants, and then they tied the Bears. I think that's what happened. But he beat one of them. I think it was the Giants. But anyways, and Presnell was their quarterback, right? And he's the Ironton Tanks quarterback. And I think in Ironton, the original stands from their field, just like in Portsmouth, right. They have the original stadium, which is an absolute architectural masterpiece.
It is.
But in Ironton, I believe they still have the original bleachers, which were also a concrete bleachers, still there.
Wow.
All right.
Somebody's got a crush.
Oh, I'm a total, like, I'm a total, like, let's say Glenn Presnell, that's my guy. Wait, I got the screenplay, Tom. Did I tell you I got the screenplay done for the movie? Yeah. Well, I showed it to you. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you know that. But anyways, Glenn Presnell is one of my main characters, of course. He's one of my main guys.
Heck yeah.
Well, do you know where he died?
Oh.
Ironton, Ohio.
Oh, did he really? He went back to Ironton? Really?
He lived there.
Wow. Oh, he was really?
He wasn't born there.
That is a football player, man. Damn, he went back to Ironton. That is so awesome.
99 years he died in
And what a great name for a town.
But
Ironton.
When you go to Portsmouth,
Ironton is short for Iron Town.
Right. When you go to Portsmouth, the people in Portsmouth all talk about the Ironton Tanks.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying.
Legendary.
That Ironton,
Yeah.
I'm saying, you want to study some real football history, go look up the Ironton Tanks. And there's not a lot about them. You're not going to find it all over the internet.
No.
The Ironton, to read about the Ironton Tanks, you got to read about, you got to go to some, there's a lot of books on the early history of football. And it's all like, football in Ohio, football, and, like really the football in Ohio. I forgot the exact name, but there's a couple, 3 books that talk about football in its earliest days in this books. You know what I mean? You're not going to find it on the internet. You might find some scraps of information, but the real, you got to actually go to the books to read about Ironton. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's just a legendary, it really is like a legendary team. And Presnell, so that's what I'm saying, when Potsy's about to take over this team, in 1931, and he's like, oh, we need some, I'm about to rebuild this team and bring in 19 new guys. And they're like, this team in Ironton's got this guy Presnell, you got to bring him here, and he hits the jackpot on Dutch Clark, but he's got Dutch and Glenn Presnell, and that's what I'm saying. I love Press, man. His nickname is Press.
Well, he's very famous. In Ohio there in Portsmouth.
I want this movie to make.
So do you remember?
This movie to make Presnell?
Was he part of your interviews? What did you get some tape on him?
I told you that.
So he left early.
He left early. He had problems.
Yeah,
and also the very next day,
he wishes he could have, because Tom
at the reunion he left. But also, I'd like to tell you, at the reunion, we had a surprise guest.
Ooh, okay.
This is a great part. This is a great story.
Yeah.
This is
have
great.
any idea who the guest might have been?
No.
Now, I didn't.
Jamie has no idea. No chance.
I'll give you,
I wouldn't have had any chance either if I didn't know already.
Oh,
You have no idea who it is. Yeah. This is
the reunion.
A boxer.
No.
Nope.
Okay, that's it. That's all I got.
The reunion was on Saturday.
Okay.
And the Lions played the next day at home.
Okay.
I'll give you some hints. The team stayed in the hotel, which I did not know was the Miami Dolphins. Now, who was the coach of the Miami Dolphins?
Because the Lions were playing the Dolphins in that game.
1985.
Because did he open a steakhouse in that exact hotel?
What was his name?
Don Shula.
That's correct.
Yes.
Nailed it.
Was there? We talked about it earlier. We talked about it earlier.
Okay.
Wasn't there a Don Shula in the same hotel later?
Well, the restaurant, I think, Shula Steakhouse.
Shula Steakhouse in that restaurant later, in that hotel later.
Do you know how Don Shula got into his professional career?
No.
He was a Detroit Lion.
Oh my God! Okay.
George Wilson hired Don Shula.
Oh, all right.
Don Shula was a defensive coach for the Lions, defensive coordinator.
And he was the surprise.
60s.
He was the surprise guest. And if you notice the menu there, that his name was not on there. He was a surprise guest.
Yeah.
He came down. The speaker was speaking at the podium, and everybody was in shock. Don Shula took over, and he praised the Lions of unbelievable what he said. And he mentioned Portsmouth. He mentioned Dutch Clark. He mentioned them all.
So Don Shula gives the signature address of the Golden Huddle,
and nobody knew it.
Nobody's ever heard this story. You know what I mean? Nobody's heard the story of this Golden Huddle where there's all these players come here. Where was it at? Was it the Marriott?
Northfield Hilton.
Northfield Hilton. I'm sorry, Northfield Hilton is where the event took place. And you got Don Shula talking at this thing. Who in 1985?
I was shocked.
That was Dan Marino. I think they went to the Super Bowl in '85 with Dan Marino. That was Dan Marino rookie. No, '85 was the Bears. I'm sorry. No, '85 they played it was the Patriots. But what year did Marino? Marino was right about that time. That Marino, he took Marino to the Super Bowl too. But he was already a Hall of Fame coach by that point.
But he talked about Portsmouth, and he looked at the players, and he just was thanked the whole team, the Lions organization, for hiring him. Ironically, on George Wilson, he was the last player to play without a helmet. He grew up stayed in Dearborn on Garrison Street. We had a store across the street. And George Wilson used to come into the shop all the time in the 50s and talk about football and the champions.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd bring that up.
And where was the, Buddy Parker for the 1950, coach of the 1950s Lions? Where did he get his start?
Well,
1935 Lions. He was a rookie on the 35 Lions.
That's absolutely correct.
That's what I'm saying. So that's one of the things I talk about today. I talk about whenever I get I'm going to talk with Lions fans and stuff like this. Is about, like people are like, oh, the Lions are terrible, the Lions are failures, whatever, blah, 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 right? But if you look at some of these teams, right? You look at some of these teams like Pittsburgh, like Chicago, like the Bears, you know what I mean? The Packers, and even like the Vikings and that. All of these teams have a certain, like, it's a continuity of like a winning culture, a winning culture. And it's like, And a lot of times it's like it's this continuity that carries on from decade to decade to decade. Like the Vikings, they've had this continuity since like the Purple People Eaters of the 70s. Like they've been competitive ever since. Yeah. The Packers, they've had this continuity all the way back since the 1930s, right? And it's like, and then you've got the Bears, same thing, this continuity like this. And the Lions began that continuity. In the 30s, they had, when the Lions first came in, they were incredibly awesome. They were winning their first 10 games. They didn't give up a point for 7 straight games. And then in 35, they win the whole damn thing. They beat the Bears. They beat the Packers. They run everybody out of the building. And then in the 50s, you got Buddy Parker, who is a star in the 1935 championship game. And he comes and he becomes the coach of the Lions in the 50s. And he brings that continuity. In that continuity, they're awesome in the 50s.
Yeah.
They win 3 championships in the 50s. They're one of the most toughest teams in the 50s. And then that continuity, there's a separation. You see what I'm saying? Like there was a disconnect between that point and the way that really what it is now. And I'm not trying to say that I know everything about how or why that disconnect happened. But what I'm saying is there is more to a team. There is more to a team. There's more to a franchise than just like buying a bunch of players. Oh, this guy's good. This guy's good. Whatever like this. It's about establishing it's about establishing the sense of continuity that stretches over the course, tapping into your legacy. And let me just say this, all right? Maybe this is one of the things I'm trying to talk about, why the importance of the 1935 season, okay? One of the reasons why this story is important, because you know what? You talk to any Lions fan out there, and anybody that's watching this show, go ask your local Lions fan, right? Go ask your local Lions fan, what was the first year that the Detroit Lions won their first champion? What was the year that the Lions won their first championship? 99% of them will have no idea that it was 1935, right? So let me just ask the question to finish off this thought. How can you have continuity as an organization, as a franchise, or anything like this, if you don't even know the first championship of your team or where that team came from, how they got here, what made them great in the 1950s, meaning Buddy Parker definitely took a few lessons from Potsy Clark.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely took a few lessons from Potsy Clark. That's that continuity, a continuity and culture for the entire families. And I'm not trying to, talk bad about fans or whatever, like, oh, you don't know about the 35 season, so you're, so that's, that's your problem. What I'm trying to say is, what if this is the time, right? To bring back this sense, like I say, this continuity of culture that stretches back from the earliest days of Lions, carried on through the 50s. And maybe at one point it was severed, but what if embracing this story, what if embracing what made the Lions great in the first place is, the whole, just the basic concept of history is knowing where you came from in order to understand who you are, right? And that is the missing ingredient of what will take the Lions to the next NFL championship.
So, Tom, you gave me
theory, right?
two. Yeah.
Hey, give me a little bit of credit.
You got it, man.
I just went on a little rant.
Sure.
Give me something here. Matt, give me something.
So, Ruger.
Matt missed it, man. I just went on a rant.
So,
Jamie, what I just gave to you.
Yeah.
I turned your mic
somebody
down.
Comment.
People can see them.
Can somebody
So,
comment in and tell me it was a nice little rant that I had?
went to
Come
both
on.
as a
Give me
kid.
something.
I went to both of those games.
oh,
Just
you have
solve
it?
the Lions
and I
problems and
I
everybody just
have the
blow me
original.
off.
I have the original things. But this was the cover of the 57 of their magazines,
All right.
and that was the very first one. That was 53.
Right.
I just looked that up. Talking about programs.
Yeah.
When the 1932 World Championship game was played in Chicago, they had a fire on the eve of the game, and the programs got burned and scorched. And one or two survived, and somebody paid $10,000 for a scorched program, and there's 2 or 3 left. And I looked it up on the internet. The program is offered at $50,000.
Jeez.
That's it?
Wow.
So
Wow.
is that a
That's
copy of the cover? Is that what you're showing us?
No, that was the copy of.
By the way,
cover.
these things, what we need to leave these with Jamie, right? Because we can take some pictures of these and we can put them up so we don't have to bootleg these things up in front of the camera like this. We can actually show it.
Yeah, I took pictures of them real
good.
quick.
All right, I got
There's
you.
a little shadow
But we
on
can
it. I
load
wanna
these
take a
up and
better
actually
one.
make it look sharp on
Yeah.
the picture. You know what I mean? So we don't have to like last second these things. So if you leave these, especially, are you coming back next week, Tom?
Well, sure.
You come back in like next month, Randy, you?
This is all I have.
Let's introduce Randy real quick.
Yeah,
Randy, jump on the mic real quick. Randy's been here the whole time. We didn't even introduce him.
Randy's fine, thank you.
Yeah, while you're situated, Charles, I got to tell you, when you go on your rants, and I love your rants, I actually have to bring your microphone down because you get so animated and your voice starts to go up a couple.
And everybody that knows me that's watching the show, they know it too. So Tom knows it too, and now Randy, he knows it too. Like, oh yeah,
I'm paying attention back here, my friend. I got you.
I'm just saying, I solved the line. I may have solved the problem with the Lions. That's like, this would be on like every. This show's the most talked about show in Detroit right now.
Right,
maybe everybody's like, hold on a second, Tom needs another bottle of water or something, like something like some rant, it's like, oh, come on, man. Like, give me I want to know if my rant was correct or not correct, or what's the
when
feedback.
You play pool, you're behind the 8 ball. I'm behind you right now.
Right.
Yeah. So introduce Randy real quick, man. Randy brought Tom in here, and Randy just came in. Where'd you fly from? Colorado?
I did. I'm from Colorado.
Welcome, Randy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, but I do live local. Tom's my neighbor, and I got to tell you, I've never met anybody that knows more about the history of sports in the city of Detroit.
He loves it. Yep.
I mean, he's a walking legend.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, we're just glad. We're glad to have you. We're glad you guys came into the studio because we were talking about maybe doing a Zoom thing or whatever. And we're really. How long are you here for?
Oh, actually, I live here. So
you're back. So you're actually back. Okay, I thought you were just.
Oh,
now I get it. You're his neighbor. I got you. Okay.
But by the way, his son has your book. Tell him on the centerpiece of Ohio, Andrew. Tell him.
So I had a son that moved out to Colorado. Tom bought him your book, The City of Champions, and I told him it's the conversation piece.
That's what we love. Yeah, you want
in his condo. It sits right there on the coffee table.
And I appreciate that compliment. But you want to know the greatest compliment that I agree. Not saying that compliment wasn't great, because it was. And I appreciate it. It's on the coffee table. It's a talk about book. It's great. But you want to know what the best compliment that I ever got with my book, right? This is like my second year of selling books. This is back in like 2009 or 10, something like that. I don't remember what second year was, but it was somewhere around there. Anyways, this person comes up to me and they're like, I've seen that book before. I was selling books, right? And the person comes up to this table and they go, I've seen that book before. And I'm like, oh, okay. No, you know what it was? I was at a bar and I was showing somebody on my phone, I think, that I was like, yeah, that's my book. Or no, you know what it was? I gave my mini book, because back then I had, instead of a business card, I had miniature version of the book. It was like a little stapled, like 5-book thing. And if anybody has a mini book, like down the road, I'm about to make these things worth millions, because they were like my original business card, which is these miniature books. Anyways, so I gave somebody a miniature book at a bar and said, this is what I do. Right. And the person says, oh my God, I've seen this book. Right. And they're thinking about it. They're like, where have I seen this book before? And then he says, it's in my friend's bathroom. Right. He goes, it's in my friend's bathroom. I've seen it on his toilet. Sure. It's on the back of his toilet. And he goes, and then all of a sudden he goes, oh, I'm sorry. He's like, he was lost in thought trying to remember where he had seen the book. And then he was just being honest. And the last I saw was in his friend's toilet. And I go, no, that's the greatest compliment I've ever been given.
Absolutely.
I was like, my book is a bathroom reader. I'm like, every person. I guess one thing to be a coffee table book, but it's like when it's in the
Here's
bathroom.
Something the world has
that's
never
something
seen. That's
that people
Joe
are
Lewis's
reading.
original
You know what I mean?
autograph.
That's people that every person goes to read. So, anyways, that's I think that's. I've told that people before. I don't need a Pulitzer Prize.
Jack Dempsey.
But you tell me
Joe
I'm a
Lewis
bathroom
was my
reader.
best friend.
I don't know what else. There's nothing else. There's no other boxes I got to cross. I don't need gold stickers. I don't need any of that. It's a
Charles, you said you do.
The program when I went to the event.
Hold on.
And Jack Dempsey was in the ring, and Joe Lewis. That's Joe Lewis. He couldn't read or write in 49. It's all in circles.
Wow.
The story on that autograph is beyond your imagination.
Yeah, so he's got where'd you get those? Did you get those? You went to Caesar's Palace, didn't you?
No, I got that when I was 8 years old in 1949. And then I met Lewis at Caesar's Palace, and we talked about that.
That might be something we can bring back for Joe Lewis when we do that.
Yeah.
Jamie, where are your
Can
white
we hold
gloves?
on to any of these, Tom?
This is all I got. I'll make you
make some copies, especially some of this stuff, so we can know what you want to bring you back for.
I'm very proud of what I've done. A lot of people have never seen here to get something into Cooperstown.
Yeah.
I did that.
So you had the Football Hall of Fame
Yeah.
note there, and you have something for
Probably not
Cooperstown
many people have ever seen that.
as well. The Baseball Hall of Fame and
With the
museum.
Charlie Garinger
Your
thing.
donation
And that's another
certificate.
thing we want to bring Tom back. And I wish we would have brought you in here for because we did like 14 episodes. What episode is this? 19?
Charlie Garinger
17.
interview. Yeah,
He
No,
was
it's
a,
not.
what a
17.
Your math is incorrect.
That's what I
17?
saw.
Last year he was
17.
18.
This is 17.
Maybe my math is wrong. All right.
Charlie Garinger.
Are you guys both sure about that?
I went
No.
many.
No,
many,
you're not
many,
sure. I got it written down
uh,
somewhere.
I went with many stories.
I think my math
with
is
him
right.
at
You guys are
restaurants.
wrong. I'm gonna
He
look
was
it up.
one heck of a player. He was
Yeah.
from Fowlerville, Michigan.
But yeah,
Oh, really?
but Tom's got an
Okay.
He
interview.
wrote the Fowlerville Flash.
Yeah, one of the things we want to talk. One of the things we want to bring in is Tom's interview with Charlie Garinger.
Oh, we
Tom
definitely-
interviewed Charlie freaking Garinger.
I want to.
man.
I want to. We can play. I'd be honored
That's
if
on
you'd let us
this.
play a
So
little
that's
bit.
the disc.
Oh, it's on here too.
That's
Okay.
his interview with Garinger. But I'm saying like maybe when we're done with the Golden Huddle because I want to focus on
We
the
can
Lions.
revisit.
Yeah.
We can revisit.
The Lions never
yeah.
get the
That's
attention that they
amazing,
deserve.
Tom.
Yeah.
Since
I can't wait to
since
share
we're
a few of
talking
these.
about
Yeah.
sports.
Yeah.
You have any idea? I'm going to show you something that many people. I did
I'm
not know
looking
this.
up what episode we're on, by the way. We're on episode
I do like gladiator movies, so bring it.
episode 17.
There was a
Episode
there was
17.
a
That's what I
jeweler
said.
in
I said 18.
Dearborn
You
in
said
1946.
Did you?
All right.
Winston Jewelers.
Is
Okay.
it recorded?
He started a basketball team.
Uh-huh.
They were called the Detroit Gems.
The Detroit Gems. All right.
Have
What
you ever
year was
heard of
this?
that?
46, you said?
Yeah, this is a
1946.
great
All right.
fact. Tom's the one that told me about this. Yeah.
All right,
1946.
get up closer. Give me
Um,
this story.
19. Well, we're not on the air.
Yeah, we are.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, we're
Hell
still.
yeah, we are.
I just took my headphones
I
off. We're
thought we
still.
had dinner.
We're still
Uh,
cooking,
well,
man.
If we weren't on the air, there's all kinds of crazy stuff.
So my
going on right
hometown.
now,
So
man.
in
We're on the air.
1946.
All right.
This jeweler started a basketball team called Detroit Gems. They played Olympia. They had a bad year though.
Okay.
They won 4 and lost 46.
Ooh.
A franchise came from Minneapolis, and they wanted to buy the franchise to get into the National Basketball Association.
All right.
NBA,
The
yeah.
Gems. Yeah.
They took
all
the
right.
team from the Detroit Gems, and they took them to Minneapolis. And what did they call them? The
The
Minneapolis.
Lakers. The Lakers. Did I get it right, Tom?
That's right.
Yes,
Oh.
I did.
Are that the
Minneapolis
Lakers?
This is the
that-
actual
The
story.
Minneapolis Lakers.
And
now
did that become the LA Lakers?
Yes, it did, and that's what the team
And
went
the-
out to
and now
LA.
And they
just-
started here.
So
they started in Detroit.
the
The
Detroit-
Lakers
Get out of the
began in
city.
Detroit. Yeah.
Dearborn, Michigan. They
Yeah.
started in Dearborn.
But here's the question: is that the season that the Gems had was so bad that it qualified the Minneapolis Lakers for the first overall draft pick.
Oh,
The guy that they got was Tom. Do you know?
Mikan.
George Mikan. Nailed
Wow.
it. Number 1 overall, who at the time was like
So
the
if-
greatest basketball player that ever
I
lived.
know we're getting a little bit off the
But I'm
base.
saying
Yeah,
George
no, that's
Mikan.
fine.
So that's how George Mikan
That's
went
how
out to
they-
LA and was
the
their
Detroit
first great
turned the
center.
ball over to Minneapolis.
Oh, so that's a
And
nice
now that
formal
team
photo.
just with the Lakers just winning
Won-
their division.
yeah,
They've now
won their
tied-
championship.
They've tied the Celtics. They've won 17 world
Yeah.
championships, and the Lakers and the 17. So it's a
Yeah,
tie.
but
that
George
was the
Mikan,
actual
but because of the
$15,000.
But because of the Gems'
Yeah.
awful season, they got
him a
the
good pick.
Lakers. George Mikan is like the original superstar. He was
Right.
like the first superstar of the NBA. And so George Mikan, when he played for the Minneapolis Lakers, then he went to the Los Angeles Lakers, and he became like the first like LA Lakers, superstar. So that's how. So yeah, the Lakers are like literally came from Detroit.
Tom, he's got like 2 binders full of stuff, and he just
Yeah.
keeps pulling them out. Oh, Gordy,
Okay,
right
who's,
on.
who's
And
the
Wayne.
that's Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
That's the only sports picture in history where the little kid beat the champion in goals. Only picture ever taken.
Oh, where you mean the kid ended up coming
That-
back?
he was 12 years old. There was
yeah.
Howe had the record.
Well, we got to show the viewers so they know. What we're talking about.
It's a copy of a copy, but that's that
who's
famous
who.
picture of Gordy
Yeah.
and Gretzky.
Yeah.
When Gretzky was like a 11 or 12 years old.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
That's
Tom,
amazing.
who is your favorite player from the Lions? Who's your favorite player? I just told you mine.
Bobby Lane and I had the
No, no,
opportunity.
yeah, I know. But mine was Barry Sanders, but we're talking about 35 Lions.
35, probably Abe Kushner. I mean, it's not Abe.
Players,
Ernie
wise.
Cadell.
Cardell, yeah, okay. I was
Yeah.
gonna say Cadell, Dutch. It could have been my couple favorite. top
I got to
ones.
tell you a story. If you look at 1934, Chuck Bernard.
Oh, yeah, we talked about him already.
Well,
Yeah,
I went to school.
I met his son, Chuck Bernard Jr.
I went to school with his daughter.
Oh, okay.
And she
yeah.
graduated at Etzel Ford High School in there. And
His dad came into Laurel Park the other day. I was talking about Laurel Park. Yeah.
So
he
Mom.
died at a very young age.
so Night Train Lane was your favorite Is that who you meant?
No, his favorite was Bobby Lane as a player.
Bobby Lane?
But he was talking about 6. I'm like, that's cop up, man. I'm not talking about Barry
Bobby Lane.
When I played football,
we're talking about 35.
Did they call him Night Train Lane? Is that was that?
But he was in the 60s.
He was in the 60s.
Yeah.
But you said that was your favorite Lion.
No, my 2 favorite Lions were Doak Walker and Bobby Lane.
All right.
Matter of fact, I used to put Bobby Lane on one shoulder pad. And
Ah.
I wasn't very good. I was always in the emergency room.
Who's your guys' favorite players? Who's your favorite?
Let me tell you,
Randy?
Sports ball.
No?
and I also
Matt,
tell you,
who's your favorite Lions players?
I love them
Right
kickers,
now,
man.
Ever.
well, Barry is up there.
Yeah,
Pretty
Barry's
high.
number 1 for me.
Barry's up
Yeah.
there pretty high.
he was great.
Who's your favorite?
Oh my God, yeah.
You know, I
My
saw
favorite?
Gale
Another
Sayers
favorite
play,
besides
and he
Barry.
was
We all
great,
got
too.
Barry.
Calvin.
Calvin Johnson?
Yeah.
I like Benny Blades.
Let me go
Benny
back.
Blades.
let me go back-
Who all knows about Benny Blades out there?
Let me
That's
go
my second
back.
favorite.
Let me go back to the 35 game when they played. When Abe Kushner told me that when he went in to see them, they were playing the Giants. It was a very cold day. Matter of fact, that the crowd that showed up at Titan Stadium was 15,000. That was the lowest crowd to ever watch a crowd. It was a bad day. But Abe said they walked in and he knew Dutch Clark personally, and he knew Abe Kushner. He knew them all. Their main concern was they wanted that broadcast to get back to Portsmouth on the championship game.
Yeah.
There was only one radio station in Portsmouth. It was WPA.
Let me ask you a question. Let me
Yes,
ask you a question, Tom. Have you ever seen the 1935 Lions play?
I'm old, but
No, I'm not. No, I know. I'm not saying in person. I know. I'm not going to say you're 80 years old, but the Lions season was in 35. That was what 90 years.
I was
85 years ago.
I was born in.
That was before your
All
time.
right. But on the video.
I know you weren't there to watch them play live. I know that. I'm not.
Have you seen the video?
I'm not a math.
He's a time traveler. Where is he? Came? He rolled
I'm
up in a
not a math-
DeLorean, man.
I'm not a math genius, but I know at 1
You did
years
not see the
old
DeLorean
that
he
you were
rolled up
old
in?
enough to remember,
Marty.
the season. What I'm saying is that since 1935, right? There's been people that have archived 1935 Lions footage since that time.
There's some great stuff to see.
No, I
Have you seen? First of all, I just want to say this: the 1933 Portsmouth Spartans, the 1931 Portsmouth Spartans, Potsy Clark wearing the leather jacket.
There's some cool stuff. Yeah.
1935 NFL championship game. 1936 Lions with the banner of the 1935 world champions flying
some
from
cool
a flagpole. We've showed all of this thus far on this show.
Yeah.
All right. And so what I'm saying is, Tom, is whether it's on the next show
Well, soon.
or whether it's prior to the show, Randy, maybe you can set him up with some of this stuff. But what I'm saying is this:
Send you the list.
is that you may have not known, and this is I'm actually wanting for like an honest reaction, like a look in Tom's face. That's what I'm looking for right now. Is that Tom? When you leave here tonight, maybe this is like a special guest, like a special prize, so to speak. When you go home tonight, between now and the next show, I'm going to show you how you can see as much Detroit Lions, Portsmouth Spartans footage of these players as you can ever want to watch.
But he was in the middle of saying something.
There is so much footage out there
It
that
is.
has been collected on the internet,
Well,
on
thank
the
God.
YouTube.
All right.
Thank
I'm
God
going to
for
show
that.
you how to watch it. And then
It
next week when you come back, I want to know what your thoughts are, because
That
for
is.
me, when I first saw it, it was almost like a tear being shed, actually watching these players in person.
Let me tell you something that the players told me that nobody ever knew. And Abe Kushner told me.
All right, we're gonna wrap it with this. What is it?
Yeah, let's
no,
wrap it up.
come on. What is it?
Hit us with
When
it.
they played the championship game in 1935, the Portsmouth players put little P's under their jerseys
Yeah,
Uh,
to remember Portsmouth. Yeah.
to remember the players left behind.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Their hearts were in Portsmouth. Their mind was on the field.
Sure.
That's it.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm so glad you came in,
Tom,
because,
yeah,
like,
thank you so much
you're
for
the
being
connect-
here.
because we're talking about the Lions and City Champion season, but Tom is like bringing us back because
heck yeah.
he's reminding us that these players came from Portsmouth, and this was the transition from Portsmouth to
Got my
Detroit.
Spartan shirt on.
You're close.
Wrong Spartan.
You're
but-
close. You're getting there. But that transition, it was not easy, and it certainly to this day is something that's remembered by Portsmouth and remembered as something that was like, I mean, it was traumatic for them to lose their NFL team.
That is.
Well,
So you're bringing us back to that point. I'm glad
also,
you're here.
Portsmouth is still an NFL team because Art Rooney, when I talked to him, he mentioned Portsmouth, and so did George Halas.
Yeah, they got the stadium ready to go. I would, if I was running the Lions, let me just say this, right? I got my secondary project where I'm trying to do something with the Tigers, whatever. But give me a chance down the road. Am I ever have a chance? The Lions ever look for some advice from me? Right? The Lions ever look for some advice from me? You know what I'm going to tell them? Play a game in Portsmouth.
That's it.
Go back to your roots. Here's the thing: the stadium might only hold like what? What do you think holds 5,000?
That'd be
Oh,
fun.
I think it could hold a little bit more.
Okay,
You know,
but here's the
I
thing.
ran that
But how
field.
freaking cool? How awesome? How cool would it be to have an NFL game in the original, like
That
in
would be
this
cool.
original 1930s stadium
Yep.
that is in perfect condition? How freaking cool would that be?
That would
Even
be
if it was
awesome.
even if it was like an exhibition game,
Sure.
right? It would be the coolest thing. It'd be like Field of Dreams. It'd be
We
like
got
the
to
original
we got to
Field of
pull the
Dreams.
plug on it though,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pull it.
So
Well, we
more
got
good-
Tom. That's what I'm saying.
Tom,
we need
you
4
got to come
episodes with
back.
Tom.
Man.
He's
I
gotta
know
come
there's
back.
just there's
We're
no
just scratching
stopping.
the surface, man.
Tom, thanks so much for being here and
You're entirely
sharing.
welcome.
It's
I
I'm looking forward to more.
I follow this 35.
Yeah.
I was honored. You know,
Tom's
to
got
think-
the 35 shirt on right
yeah,
now, man.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all right. If you're listening, if you haven't
In my
subscribed
hat.
already, please subscribe, put a like, leave a comment. All of it helps. And we appreciate each and everybody. It is Detroit City of Champions, the podcast. We'll see you next time.